This is Eric Mwathe with Mwathe.com. Did you know that all great stocks have the same chart characteristics just when they start moving out of boring sideways action into stardom? Do you know what these characteristics are? Do you know how to identify them? Why not? You're an investor. Don't you think it pays for you to be able to identify a hot stock just when it starts moving, when it moves out of boring sideways action? We are going to look at two stocks today. On the first one, this being a 2-year weekly chart, and on the very first stock, we're going to see how a stock broke out into new highs from this level right here around the $2, just under $2, and would go to gain to double in price in about 6 months or so. So what made this stock do that? At the same time, in the following year, the stock broke out again from around $4, and within 3 weeks had run up all the way to around above $6.50 for a good quick gain with minimal odds for failure. What made this great setups? On the very first move that launched this great move from what has been an awesome run, we see that the stock broke out to new highs and followed through the following week. We also see that at the time, volume was above average on week 1 and week 2. We see that the RSI had just moved for the first time above 68. You see that our on-balance volume had just made a 1-year high. We see that the performance as measured by the S&P 500 also moved to a 1-year high, and we see that our MACD made a not a 1-year high, but a crossover at the time. So we have a crossover on the MACD, new highs on the performance against the market, new highs on the on-balance volume, and the RSI moving above 68, volume being strong, price breakout with a follow through. There you have it. That's the formula. Stock takes out. Bam! We see the same thing happened in earlier this year in July. Stock broke out and followed through. We see a sharp increase in volume during the breakout in week 1 and week 2. Our RSI moved above 68. The line that measures the cash flow on a weekly basis comes close to a new high. Performance against the market makes a new high, and we also have a MACD crossover. So that was what made the move great. Stock I'm talking about is CKSW. Again, this being a 2-year weekly chart. What we see right now is that the stock is setting up to move above prior weekly closing high. The weekly closing high that the stock needs to move above is 621, which is a prior weekly closing high. You see the stock is just moved very sharply towards that level, towards today's being Friday, the closing. And what you see is that I think because the stock has moved too fast, it might need to settle around here before taking off. So we might settle down before the breakout or slightly above the breakout point, and then we are gonna take off. So what we want during the breakout is we want our volume to be above average. We want this RSI to move above 68, and we'd like to see the on-balance volume make a new high. Actually, this looks a little bit shaky, the on-balance volume over here, but on a daily chart, it shows that yes, the on-balance volume should be actually trending to a new highs on the daily, so confirm that. And we also want the performance against the S&P 500 to be at a new high, which is just about, and we see that our MACD is crossing over. So this looks like a great setup going into the new week for a breakout. Next we have TTGL, this being a 2-year weekly chart. And let me go back and look at a prior breakout quickly. You see the stock broke out September 2006 from around 70 cents and ran up in 6 months, traded as high as $1.40, so it doubled in 6 months. It also had another breakout sometime in July of this year, moving from $1.30 all the way to $2.20 for a huge gain in a short period of time. Let's go back and look at what launched this move. You see that when the stock broke out last year, it broke out and followed through. Volume was heavy on week 1 and week 2. You see our RSI moving above 68 for the first time. Not for the first time, but our RSI moves above 68 at the time. On balance volume makes a new high. Performance against the market makes a new high. And our MACD had already crossed over, so all those things were aligned. So right now the stock is attempting to break out or preparing itself to test prior weekly closing highs at 218. This becomes our buy point. Wait for the stock to move above this level on volume. So we see that the stock wants to move above that level right there, and we expect this to happen on heavy weekly volume. Our RSI is already above 68. Our on-balance volume is just about to make a new high. Performance against the S&P 500 should make a new high very easily. So watch this one for momentum breakout play. Again, this is ERIC, moade.com.